Hey, y'all, welcome to Book World: The Great Escape. I'm author CJ Peterson. My co-host over here is author Michael Scott Clifton. We have a lot going on. Before we start, Mike, how was your week? If I'm not mistaken, you were a speaker this weekend.
Yeah, we had the Northeast Texas Writers Organization Writers Conference. Normally, it's held in the spring at the end of April, but we had area-wide power outage,
Oh no. Yeah, that's right.
unfortunately, at that time, and we had to reschedule it. And it was great. I spoke on the use of magic in writing books, particularly magical realism, what we focused on. C.I. Chevron, author C.I. Chevron, spoke on writing effectively with bated breath. And Mike Wigington, who's been a guest on Book World, spoke about world building and setting. It was a conference that was basically focused on science fiction and fantasy, which we normally don't do. But a lot of authors who are not familiar with that. The hope was that it's not quite as much of a reach as they might think. So we had a lot of good response. It was a great conference, and also this week, Melanie and I will be at the Books and Barrels Shoporama, which will be in Longview at Mod Cod Convention Center. It's a fundraiser done every year for the East Texas Alzheimer's Alliance, and it combines wine tasting and vendors. And what could be better than books and wine? So it's going to be. We're looking forward to that. It'll be from I think 10 to 5 at inside the Mod Cobb Convention Center. And one other thing I forgot to mention in last week's podcast is that I was proud. Well, I might have mentioned it, but I've slept since then. So if I've repeated this, y'all pardon me. My book Pringle Prawn won a Reader's Favorite Honorable Mention Award, which I was particularly proud of. And they're going to be having the award ceremonies in Miami, and think that's going to be next year. Is it anyway? I don't know if you're going yet, but there also display your books there for the books that were winners will be displayed for the public and for publishers and things such as that. So I was really proud about that. And
Wait, none of my magic is working today. There we go.
Yeah.
I want them to work.
And
Okay,
anyway,
congratulations.
that's what's happened. Yeah.
What do you have going on for the rest of the year? As we head into the holidays, there's a lot of things you need to mark the calendars real quick with.
So in October, we have Mount Pleasant has the Uncorked Wine Festival, which will be from 12 noon to 6 p.m. at Heritage Park in Mount Pleasant. We haven't been at this before. It'll be a first time. And then also I will be at the Longview Public Library on Saturday, November the 2nd. It's Indie Authors Day. And CJ, you'll get a laugh out of this. I'm supposed to be presenting on AI in writing. So
that's a technically oriented guy.
Yeah. So we did actually a podcast on AI a while back. So I'm going to have to brush up and watch it over again to see what we thought. But yeah, it's just the bare bones. The one about AI and publishing and all that. And I'm looking forward to that. And then Mount Pleasant has what they call Deck the Halls, which is held at the Titus County or Mount Pleasant Civic Center. And that is going to be on Friday and Saturday, November 15th and 16th. I've been doing that for years and years. So we'll continue on this year. And other than, let's see, Longview Art Walk, last one will be on December the 12th, which is my birthday, in downtown historic Longview. And that's going to wrap things up for the year.
Awesome. Well, the reason I hadn't mentioned that is because last week, there's a post on my Facebook, so some people know, some people don't. I found out that surgery that I had back in January When they fixed my labral tear, they also removed a tumor, and we found out that it was actually cancerous. So they did some scans. We talked to our oncology doctor this morning, and they're going to be doing a surgery to remove the remaining portions of the cancer, as well as hip replacement. And then following that, about 6 weeks of recovery will be followed by radiation therapy and potentially chemotherapy. So, because of all of that, and my genius cohort over there, technically oriented is why we chuckle. Um, we're going to go ahead and suspend Book World after today's episode till probably the new year, just because of the timing of everything. So that's why I want to make sure that everybody was aware of where he was going to be showing up. Me, I'm going to be recovering from surgery and going to be working on radiation and chemotherapy. Any good thoughts or prayers coming my way would be greatly appreciated. There's a lot going on in my head right now, and I'm trying to wrap everything around it. So, in the meantime, today we are going to be talking about book covers and judging a book by a cover because that is a very important issue when it does come to books. People are like, well, you never judge a book by its cover. And I'm going to call baloney on that because that is not true. There's a couple reasons for it. One of them being because that tiny little thumbprint, thumbnail, is what is the first thing that a lot of people see, especially the electronic version. And it needs to stand out. If it's too dark, they won't see it. If it's too busy, they won't know what they're looking at. It needs to be able to pop. So you have to have colors that pop. You have to have a design that stands out. You have to have a design that doesn't look childish or doesn't look like somebody did it in the back room and decided to put it up. You have to have a good quality cover. You also have to have a cover that represents the book itself and the story itself because that's the first representation of the story that they see. Mike?
Well, I mean, that's the cliche. You can't judge a book by its cover. Technically, is true, but when it comes to attracting readers to take, to stop and look at your book, that is like you said, I call baloney double on that
Mhm.
because that's not true. I've been to enough now. Digital book covers um, that you look at, even though they're different in terms of you're using a data device to look at them. If you go to Amazon and you click on the book and you look at and well, if you go to an Amazon site and you're looking for an ebook and you spot a the thumbnail image and you see a brief description, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to click on the thumbnail image to enlarge it. In fact,
Mhm.
Amazon's made it easy. You can zoom and make it even bigger and turn pages. So and then I know for 100% fact, being at so many book events and book shows and things like that, uh, a cover, a good book cover, stops people at your booth.
Oh, yeah,
It
hands down.
stops them at your booth. And and I've the old adage, the first thing people look at is a book cover.
Mhm.
It is. Second thing they're going to look at is the back cover description of it,
Mhm.
or they'll look on the digital description on Amazon. Third thing they may do is read a few pages.
Mhm.
But if you don't get them to stop initially to even look, none of that's going to happen.
Mhm.
And an amazing book cover uh, can really drive some book traffic and get people to stop, and look at your book. And from that point on, it's the book either sells itself or it doesn't, but they still have to stop and look at it. And we
Yeah,
both know that's true because we've
yeah.
been there, done that with so many different book events.
Well, they say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. The book cover is the first impression,
Right,
flat
right.
out from the get-go. It's kinda like a movie poster or some sort of a trailer. That is the first impression that a lot of people get of your story, and it has to be good, and it has to represent the story. There are some books where I've looked at it, and I've read the story, and I'm like, "But what does that have to do with the cover?" It doesn't make sense, and I'm like,
If you have a plumber on the schedule with saggy pants and his crack showing, you can be pretty assured it's not about fantasy.
"Mhm,
And if you see a dragon with wings spewing fire on the book cover, you can pretty much be assured it is about fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think, CJ, that you get what you pay for with a book cover.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go cheap, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but if you want to go cheap, there's a site called Fiverr you can go to and get books. It's called Fiverr because you supposedly can get covers for books for $5. I haven't used it, but I know lots of people that have. And
I've also known people who've gotten great book covers from Fiverr.
yes,
Fiverr, it
oh,
just depends on how much you want to pay for.
right,
And there are some that you can get for $50, some you can get for $100, some you can get for $200.
right,
Um, you can get really good quality book covers. A lot of it just depends. Sometimes it's your skill, sometimes it's the skill of the cover artist.
yeah,
Sometimes you just need to know how to pick it because you only get that one chance to make that first impression.
right. And I wasn't disparaging Fiverr, but I'm saying, there are book covers you can get for $5, but like you said, probably, you know, you may want to spend a little bit more for a better book cover. I have what I decided uh, for my books, and of course, anyone following the show knows that I primarily write science fiction, fantasy, magical adventure. Is to go a little bit of the, extra mile and have more original covers.
Hmm.
And you're not going to lie, to pay up for those, and probably more than a lot of authors might pay for a good book cover. But I can tell you that it's paid for itself many times over.
Hmm.
And all but one of my 8 book covers were original art design and original cover designs. Half of them were done by a cover artist that lives in London, England, and the other half was done by a cover artist that lives in Belgium. And the other one that I had done was done by a cover designer in California, which is the more, it was. I didn't need um, the Edison Jones cover. I didn't really need a fantasy like cover. I wanted more of the science fiction vibe, and I think he did a tremendous job in hitting that. But book covers, they are very important. And
Hmm.
it's not to say, that we know this. It's not to say that what you're writing in between the covers isn't important, because of course that is too. But you want to get your reader, a potential reader, potential buyer, to stop and take a look.
Hmm. So, for example, I have this one. This is one of the ones that I did. This is my series that I did. It's the Sands of Time trilogy. I did those covers. So there's consistency within the covers. That way they know that these are the same group within the entire series. It's eye catching. They will pop off as long as it doesn't really matter the background, they will pop. There are ways that you can make book covers show up. Another one that I did was my chain reaction one. This one will definitely show up somewhere. It's bright and it's vibrant. You need to make sure that your cover will definitely show up and pop. Your one series with open portal,
The Cavern of the Veil. I mean,
Cat
the oh, the Conquest of the Veil.
Conquest of the Veil series books.
Yeah,
Those are huge. Let me look them up real quick. Those books themselves are really good for try to find your website. There you are. Books, Conquest of the Veil. So let me bring that one up. So on Mike's website, he has this Conquest of the Veil series. So as you can see them on the video, you can see how all of them are different colors, but they're all very vibrant and they definitely pop off the screen. And as you walk by his table, all 4 of those are definitely going to catch your eye. And that's what you want in a book. That's what you want in a cover of a book. You want to make sure that whatever that book is, it's going to catch somebody's eye,
right.
especially if they're interested in some sort of like a sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal, romance, whatever the genre is, you need to make sure that that
Yeah.
particular cover is going to catch whoever's eye is going to be walking by.
And I know it's counterintuitive, but obviously, as you were saying, CJ, the cover should be representative of the genre and the story that you're writing.
Hmm.
And I guess maybe one of the worst things a writer or potential writer author could do is to pick a cover that has no relationship in terms of what the image shows to the story that's within the book. You get angry readers then.
Hmm.
So like I said, I know it's counterintuitive, but the more true to the story of the book that the book cover can represent, obviously, the better. And I have seen some amazing book covers. I know you have too, CJ, and it's wonderful, CJ, to be like you, that you can create those kind of book covers for yourself that that are great covers, and they do represent the story. The rest of us humble crowd has to go out and get people to do that for us.
Right, and there are places like Fiverr, there's 99 Design.
Yeah,
You may have a friend who's a graphic designer that may be able to help. You have to be able to fit it into certain dimensions when it comes to Ingram, Spark, as well as Amazon, and figuring out how to do it. You have to be able to work with Photoshop, making sure that you're fitting their dimensions and how you're creating it within there. There's a lot of things to consider. People are always like, "Well, where do you get your models for your books?" Actually, little secret, Dreams Time. Whenever I go to write my books, I have in mind what I want my character to look like. I actually go to Dreams Time to get the character. Because if you notice in those book covers, they were real people. I went and got them because that's my character. That's who my person is. That's who I'm writing. And that helps me to stay focused on who my character is and what they look like. Because that helps me to be able to write about them a little bit better. What they look like, how they operate, and so that helps me as far as that, but also helps me to think about the design of the book cover as I'm writing the book as well.
right. And I know in formatting books, um, in relation to the book cover, and I learned this the hard way. Trim size is, that's extremely important, and the book cover has to be formatted to fit the trim size, and the trim size is how big your book is going to be.
Hmm.
Is it, I what is standard, CJ? Is it
Five
five,
and a half by
five,
8.5,
5.5 by 8.5?
or 8.5 by 5.5. 8.5 tall, 5.5 wide.
Some get them a little bigger than that. Some of them more pocketbook sized. Although I use the standard size, which I like, but you can get them a little smaller. I wouldn't recommend that because you can have an amazing color, and I'm talking about a physical book now. Okay,
Hmm.
that if you're displaying it,
Matthew Cole says hi. Hi, Matt.
but if the book is compact paperback, for example, um, you really can't appreciate the book cover on it because it's just
Hmm.
too small. And that's, again, each their own. Uh, but if you have a physical book and you're at a book event, um, you do need to have a book that can accurately and best in the best way possible put your book cover forward. Because as
Hmm.
we've said, and it bears repeating, yes, you can't tell a book by its cover, but it can. You can't, a book cover can stop a reader to at least look at the book and take a glance and see what it's about.
Oh, like I said though, I call baloney that you do judge a book by its cover. It's the same thing, for example, like if I remember correctly, Matthew actually does do comic books. So like comic books and graphic novels. You judge a book by that. And
Right.
theirs are a little bit bigger. So they have to get a lot in just that cover. And I think theirs is an 8 by 10. So they have to get everything in that enough to catch that person's eye and want to grab that comic book or that graphic novel. And it's the same thing with our novels that are, 8.5 by 5.5. We have to do it to the point that they want to be able to grab it and pick it up. It
Right.
has to be eye catching enough. Whether it's that little tagline on the front along with it. Matthew says everyone judges comics just by the cover. Covers everything in the comic book world. And it's the exact same thing in the
Yeah.
novel world.
Yeah.
The cover counts.
Yeah, graphic novels, comic books, you know, uh, you definitely do judge the book by the cover. In fact, uh, that's especially with graphic novels. I mean, that's all there is. I mean, that's it's almost like a book cover every page, and
He
it
says it's unfortunate, but it's true.
yeah. But I think you, whereas you can't maybe strictly tell a book by its cover, you can tell a lot. You can tell the genre,
Hmm.
you can tell some of the elements of the book. Again, if you have a dragon on the book cover as opposed to a hot rod, you know, uh, what does that tell you? You're not going to mistake a book with the General Lee on the front cover with a science fiction novel or fantasy.
Hmm. You
So
can also guess the time period, which is kind of cool too,
that's true. That's
because
a very important point.
you can play around with the time period. You can play around with the genre. You can have all sorts of fun with the cover itself, which is it lends to the story. It's part of the actual story.
Right.
So with mine, I like to put a lot of elements of the story itself within it. Matthew says, then here's the other side. You have an amazing cover, and then the interiors suck or very poorly written and designed. So, yes, that is true as well.
Yeah.
But you got to start with the cover regardless.
Yeah.
So whenever I do the covers themselves, like I said, I try to find little elements that I know will be important to the storyline itself. So, for example, a Team Angel series is there's like 3 or 4 pictures on the front of those covers that are very important to it. The standalones, there's 1 or 2. In a lot of the series, there's 1 or 2. Um, the one series I'm currently working on, there's actually a single picture on the front, but there may be 1 or 2 on the back. So there are certain elements within each of the covers. The Sands of Time trilogy, there's literally a hourglass on the back of each of the Sands of Time trilogy, and then there's the cover of the 4. Matthew says CJ picks great covers. Daniel McDonough picks great covers as well as her series. Matthew, I actually designed my covers, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Um, I do them myself, so it gets fun. I love doing my covers because as I'm writing the stories, the cover itself is actually developing in my head as well.
You have great covers, CJ. That's a fact.
Well, thank
You
you.
know, and I was struck. I was thinking,
He
what
says,
Matthew
"Oh,
said
cool, great work. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you."
about the comic books. Because yeah, you expect those, but then you start looking at when you think about it, and uh, if you read, for example, historical romance,
Mhm.
you expect a certain kind of cover. You're
Mhm.
looking for a certain kind of cover. If it doesn't have a bare-chested Fabio on the front and or a swashbuckling buccaneer and a woman swooning in his arms, it's probably not historical fiction. If it is,
Well,
historical romance.
historical romance. Yeah.
Yes, historical romance. So, and if it doesn't have, if you have, if you're into Star Trek, space travel, what are you going to have? You're going to have, some sort of spaceship, or you're going to have some sort of otherworldly, you know, uh, planet or scene that's
Mhm.
that's on the cover. So, uh, you know, readers who read a certain genre are going to expect certain kind of book covers, and that will appeal to them.
Mhm. Well, the fun part though is where you're reading the book and you're trying to figure out where the cover makes sense, and you actually hit that point where the cover makes sense, and you're just like, "Ah, oh, that's cool. Okay, I got it now. I'm good." You know? And when you get that and you finally fit the elements together between the puzzle and the synopsis and the back and the actual storyline itself, and you realize that they are actually all flow together to create an amazing story, is where it all connects.
Uh,
He says, "I've seen covers literally that have nothing to do with the book." Like what? Yeah, no, I have. I have seen that, and it is very painful, and it actually irritates me to no end because I'm like, "Why did you do that?"
yes, it's like you were lied to.
Yes, you feel very cheated. He says, "What editors approve that?" It's not the editors, it's the author. That is not the editor.
Now, if you're working with a
It's the
cover artist,
publisher,
yeah, which they should have caught that, obviously.
unless it's a
Uh,
self-published, then it's the author.
if you're working, what I found with working with cover artists, which is not nearly as painful or involved as you might think,
Mhm.
but typically the process that I'm familiar with is you give them a general description of what you want. Okay, what is it? What do you want it to look like? And then um, they may send you a mock-up or something back, and they will allow you a few changes, but they're not endless. In other words, they're
Mhm.
not going to keep on tweaking the book cover time and time and time again. So you have to have a pretty clear idea from the jump what you want for your book cover, and make sure that's described in detail and clearly to the cover artist, and then you can tweak that afterwards, to sort of fit. And that's a process. I mean, it's like this, been there, done that same thing. Every cover that I have ever done and worked with a cover artist. So, but the thing that I would caution anyone who watches the Book World podcast today, that you do not get carte blanche with these cover artists in terms
Mm-mm.
of change after change after change after change. Then they'll start charging you more. And
Well, and rightly so from a person who's done the cover art. It's actually not easy. It is kind of a pain in the behind, to be honest. It's not fun. And Matthew did correct it. He did say publisher. I meant um, to make changes, and the problem is when you have that one client that wants to continue to make changes, and it ends up being like a time suck. You actually have to charge them because they're taking more time when they had this one
right,
original concept, and all of a sudden by like the third, fourth, fifth, that concept does not resemble what they told you in the beginning. And
true.
so you actually have to charge them.
So you've been there, done that. You
Oh,
know,
yes.
yeah,
And Matthew says 100%
yeah,
because that does happen too. And it's just like that. That's not what you said here. This is what you said.
yeah,
And this is what I did. No, I don't mind two or three changes. And they will tell you in the beginning, two or three changes works. But there are some times where it's like, no, I changed it exactly what you said. And this is not what you said.
and a lot of them will have that if they do this for a living. These cover artists, they'll have it spelled out, their
Mhm,
package, and how many changes you can make, and
mhm.
what you have to provide, and all that. It's not ambiguous. It's pretty clear.
Oh, yeah. For the first cover artist, I actually did work with the first 8 of my books. He actually had this whole 3 or 4-page thing, and it's just like, "What colors do you like? What colors do you don't like? Give me a synopsis of your book. Give me a little bit more detailed version of your book so I can, hit a little bit more of what you're looking for." And then there's the size. Give me, you know, there's little things in there of what he specifically is looking for, so he can get an idea of what it is that you're wanting. And then on one of the questions is literally, how do you envision your cover? Um, but he and I already had clicked by like the second book. So by the third book, I we were already coordinating. By the second series, I had already picked out the main character and the pictures. So I would just send him the pictures and we just go from there. And that's why I just started doing my own books from the other one forward because I was already doing it. So there are ways to figure out what you're wanting and what you're not. Like I said, go to Dreams Time.
Right,
Figure out the different stock photos that you're wanting if you want stock photos, or at least an idea of what you're wanting. You can kind of find that on like a Dreams Time or a Shutterstock. And then you can take them and say something like this. If you're wanting to do an original, something to this effect. It gives them some sort of a basis to kind of jump off of if they're making an original. So, well, guys, we're out of time. It's been fun. Talking books and covers, and just remember that people do judge a book by cover. Make sure to do it correctly. Again, we will be suspending Book World till probably the beginning of the year. If you missed the announcement, rewind to the beginning and it will be explained. Um, we don't take this decision lightly, but we don't want to promise and continue to cancel stuff.
right.
So we're thinking of you guys first and foremost.
And can I say one last thing, CJ?
Yep.
Just your regular Book World followers, prayers for CJ that she makes a complete and successful recovery. And of course, Millie and I will continue to pray for you, CJ.
Thanks.
And hopefully we'll be back and you'll be bigger and better than ever.
Thank you.
So anyway, uh, it's I'm confident you're going to do well through this, and look forward to it. Look forward to you and I getting back together again.
Definitely. This is not cancel, it's a suspend just for a little bit. So thank you, Matthew. Matthew said yes, get well soon. Thank you, sir. So in the meantime, guys, keep working on your books. Authors and readers, keep reading to make authors happy. We are your biggest fan. Thank you.